If you can train your team to really focus on connecting with your clients and reducing their anxiety, those clients are sticky.
The term multifamily office gets thrown around so much these days, it's starting to lose its meaning. What does it actually mean, and how do clients experience it? Welcome to Visionary Advisor. I'm your host, Alex Kirby, founder of Total Family. Today's guest is Rachel Hyman, president of Family Wealth Alliance, one of the premier organizations in this space. Their membership includes many of the top multifamily offices in the country, which gives Rachel a rare and insightful perspective on how the industry is evolving. In this episode, we explore FWA's voice of the client research to understand how ultra high net worth families experience their family office. And we dive into FWA's multifamily office standards to bring some clarity to the question of what is a multifamily office? Let's dive in with Rachel Hyman. An interesting place to start with you, Rachel, as the president of Family Wealth Alliance, is people might not know what Family Wealth Alliance is.
Sure.
I obviously think it's a wonderful organization, and there's probably no one better to tell us why it's so important.
Yeah, thanks, Alex. It's a pleasure to be here with you today. The Family Wealth Alliance is a B2B only membership community where the very best family wealth firms come together to connect with true peers, gain access to essential industry research and benchmarking, form connections, and uncover ideas and insights that are tangibly able to impact their businesses and their client experience. So we are all about creating a community of peers who face similar challenges in this space with the industry leaders, with rising stars, and connecting and collaborating on a deeper level.
Multifamily offices, right, is who are the members?
That is right. Yep. We focus on the multifamily office space.
And is it safe to say these are some of the best firms in the country?
100%. We believe that. And that is why it is so interesting to see them work in our space as collaborators, right? So in another room, they may see themselves as competitors, but within our community, they leave their egos at the door and they really focus on, they're all serving ultra high net worth clients and trying to serve them at the highest level and facing similar challenges in their business with their talent, their technology, their clients, their growth, etc. And so they come in together to our community and really collaborate and share. And that is what we call our community guidelines. That is key to what makes the Family Wealth Alliance different and unique in the industry.
Yeah, we got introduced to Family Wealth Alliance through a multifamily office that we were working with.
Great.
And I feel like the things that jump out to me is, one, you've built an amazing team. You're a wonderful leader. You built an amazing team. I've had a chance to work with some of the folks on your team. And then that really informs your programming, and everyone that and this is not intended to be a commercial for Family Wealth Alliance, but I learn when I go to your events. You know, the people there is tons of lip service in this industry about serving the ultra high net worth and how it actually, and you don't really always know if you're talking to a firm that has true expertise in doing this type of stuff. But the people that you put on the stage, it's not like a pay to play situation. It's like, who's really talented, who can add value to our community. And then every time we go there, we learn. And obviously you've done Rising Gen as a focus.
Yep.
You've done Women in Wealth.
Yep.
What else?
Yeah. I think what's unique here is that we are 100% member driven. And so what happens is we have member firms as co-chairs telling us what is going to be, for everything we do, what is the most relevant information they want to talk about today. What are the challenges they're facing today? And what do they want to hear from their peers? And that drives our content, and that drives our membership, and that drives everything we do. And so if it's not a sort of rinse and repeat the fifth annual X, Y, and Z. This is always going to be fresh and relevant to what's going on and what their struggles are in the market today. And we're very intentional about not just having keynote speakers, although some of the keynotes, like yourself, are phenomenal, but not just having keynote speakers on stage. For the most part, in an FWA event, you will have a panel of firms who all handle the same topic differently
Yeah.
and all want to share their best practices within the community. So it's
Yeah.
very different in that way because it's transformative, but it's intentionally member driven.
Yeah. I remember it's just specifically in the last event, all that education about the prenups, like one, the firsthand experience of the people who had to go ask their spouses about the prenup and the dynamics that was going on there. That was totally fascinating. And then I think it was Coventry Edward Spitt talked about how they had been doing prenups and then they totally adjusted their strategy based on all the things that they learned. And I just thought that was really cool that they were out there sharing that to the community because that's something that they probably could have just kept to themselves
Yes.
and let everyone else go and continue to botch it. And instead they shared it and said like I just thought that I had so many notes from that specific session because it's just not something I know a ton about. And I thought that's just like one example of the great content that you have.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for that. Yeah, it is pretty amazing. And I think people have to experience it themselves to see how it all comes together, this collaborative community.
Sure.
Because some people will say, well, I don't want to share my secret sauce or my secret recipe. When they get amongst peers who are openly sharing, that's what makes this work for everybody. It works for the individual in the room. It works for the firm. It works for the end client and overall just for the industry as a whole in the multifamily wealth space.
Yeah. I mean, I think a lot of the advisors that listen to this podcast have a abundance mindset. They're not keeping things to themselves. And there's just so much growth that we need to make as an industry here to continue to support the changing needs of the families and just the volume of families. I think UBS said that that we're adding 1,000 millionaires a day in the United States.
It's not crazy.
Right. And so it's like we need to actually be all thinking about how we can help each other and not being, not having a scarcity mindset. So enough about your amazing organization. We're going to talk about two things today. We have this really cool voice of the client survey that Family Wealth Alliance does in partnership with Bain. And then we have your MFO standards, which you released in 2006, I think. But I think that'll be a nice way to end it because there is still a lot of confusion, even though you've been writing about this for 20 years about what actually makes a multifamily office. So the voice of the client, tell me what we're getting into here. You sent it to me. It's fascinating.
Yeah. So the Voice of the Client survey is very unique. It took us years to pull this together. There's a gentleman at Bain Company whose name was Eric Almquist. He was the founder of this concept of NPS, if you've heard of NPS.
Yep.
The Net Promoter Score, and he was also the mastermind behind what is called the elements of value. The elements of value is really Bain's hierarchy, sort of Maslow's hierarchy, in terms of what is important to a consumer.
Yeah.
So we worked with Eric Almquist, Bain, and then a number of industry executives as well to come up with a best-in-class client survey. And what we do is we work with any firm. They can be an FWA member firm. They don't have to be an FWA member firm. Any firm can participate. It is a client survey that is white labeled by the firm to their end clients or a segment of their clients. And it really focused on what is important to their consumers. They then get to their end clients, apologies. They
So
get
just so I understand, you're creating a survey that's white labeled. So if I'm a wealth advisor, I'm getting this white labeled survey that I'm sending out to my clients
yes, or a
to
subset
figure
of your clients.
or a subset of my clients.
Yes.
And there's these we were talking about them earlier, but there's these 30 elements of value
Yes.
shaped like a pyramid.
Yep.
I have no idea if we have the ability to like throw in an image of the pyramid in this podcast, but if we do, we're going to do it. And it looks like it's functional, emotional, life-changing, and social impact, like going up.
That's right. Yeah.
Okay.
And this elements of value framework that Bain created identifies these key drivers of customer satisfaction and loyalty. And they researched over 200 companies over all of these categories. The idea is you want to score more elements of value, higher on the pyramid is worth more. As you said, these functional elements, it's just sort of the basic table stakes. What is important? This is sort of where Amazon sits, right? Like sort of what are the basics? In our industry,
To use your Maslow analogy, it's like functional is food and shelter or safety,
yes,
whatever is first. Yeah.
exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
Functional is what do you do? So in our space, you're saving time for your client. You're simplifying their life. You're reducing their effort. You're
Uh-huh.
avoiding hassles, etc. You are hopefully helping them make money. But those are sort of the basics, right? That at the bottom. As you go up the Maslow's hierarchy, as you go up the elements of value, you get to things that are more emotional. You get to things like reduces anxiety, or as you go up, life-changing elements, things like providing hope, things like social impact. What is it? How am I going to be able to help society as a whole? So that gives you an idea of what the elements of value are. What we've found is that
But
as,
can I
yeah,
say a
go
couple
ahead.
things here? So like I
Yeah,
feel like first I just want to say because we talk a ton about legacy. Eric Almquist passed away in 2023,
he did.
and
He did.
what a amazing legacy he left us here with these like unbelievable tools
Yes.
that will carry on. Certainly, it seems that he had tremendous passion and creativity around this work. So I just wanted to acknowledge that because I saw they had a nice tribute to him in what you sent me. And then it does seem like it's more difficult as you move up the top of the pyramid.
That
Just
is
like
right.
with Maslow, right? Like self transcendence. I mean,
Yep.
it's a hard box to check.
Yep.
Provides hope, self actualization, motivation, heirloom, affiliation, and belonging. Those five, I would think, are extremely difficult. And then on the emotional side, examples are reduce anxiety, nostalgia, wellness. These are all interesting to me because if I'm a advisor looking at this, certainly we have the FWA aggregated data, but you can kind of look through this and put yourself through this own lens and say, what are we really doing here? There's a gentleman by the name of Ken Hyman who works for the Advisor Institute at Alliance Bernstein, and he talks about this concept from Clayton Christensen called the job to be done for the advisor. And I think we're just moving further and further away from my job is managing your money
Yes.
to I'm helping you make decisions. I understand you. I'm helping in these other areas of the pyramid. And probably like the lower you are on the pyramid, the easier it's going to be for a client to replace you.
100%. I mean, you're spot on. First of all, I listened to that podcast with Ken. Phenomenal job. Thank you.
Thanks.
So shout out to you. But I would say a couple things on this. So the client expectations in this industry are already very high.
Mm,
So
great point. That's a
the
great point.
baseline, those table stakes at the bottom, they're coming to advisors for investment expertise potentially. So that's expected, right? But
Right.
as you go up and you start to combine the emotion and some of these other top tier connections with your clients, that's where we truly can see correlation with top tier revenue growth. We see correlation with client retention, profitability. Um, those firms that are delivering more value to their clients than firms that just do the table stakes, that's where the difference is. And as long as firms can communicate that compelling value proposition that they have on their client experience, it makes all the difference. They can differentiate with greater clarity around the market differentiation. They can clarify what's important to their target client in a way that other firms cannot necessarily do so, or they can claim to do so, but have nothing behind it. With
Right.
the client, these firms are showing that they have something behind it. We've had over 3,000 clients participate across firms in the voice of the client. Data here showing what is important, what is making these best in class firms truly unique. How are firms using it in their interactions with their clients for a better connection? Because the connection at the end of the day is one of the key takeaways. You need that
Yeah.
connection with your clients. And the biggest thing, Eric, and I've sent you some of the videos from Eric. He's so articulate on this, but he will say the biggest thing in the advisory industry is to reduce anxiety.
Mm,
And if you can train your team to really focus on connecting with your clients and reducing their anxiety, those clients are sticky. Those clients stay with you, and you are then providing, the hope and value that they're looking for future generations of their families with you.
all right, let's talk about that for a second. So the on the connecting
Yeah.
piece,
Yeah.
one of the things advisors have these discovery surveys they do, or most of the times when you start as a new client and they're like they call them fact finding
Mhm.
sometimes.
Mhm.
And a lot of advisors talk about they're trying to uncover the assets and like the additional assets that the client has.
Yep.
That is a huge mistake
Yes.
because, as you point out, as Eric points out, if you have ulterior motives when you're having a conversation with a client, they will uncover it.
Mhm.
The thing that I often point out with these high net worth and ultra high net worth clients is they are not idiots.
That's right.
You don't get to have 10, 20, 30, 40 million by being a bozo. So
Yeah.
if you're going to be disingenuous and you're going to ask questions about like, oh, and so do you keep money anywhere else? Like they're going to see through it. And if you can flip discovery and your interactions with a client into a place of genuine curiosity,
Yes.
just getting to know them as a human being, I think that's tremendously powerful. And you might have to unlearn some of the stuff that you learned early on.
Yep.
But if you're going to continue to grow as an advisor and move into the space where someone with $50 million is going to take your guidance or advice, I think the only place to start is from a place of curiosity and just like being really honest about what you know and what you don't. So I love the connection piece. Any other thoughts on like connection? I feel like there's so many of the people I've met at FWA are just, I'm thinking of like one specific person, just so much authenticity when you talk to these people and you hear them talk about their clients.
Yes. Yeah. I think it really is the differentiator. I mean, in our research, and again, Eric was very clear on this, the elements of value that he studied across industries compared to the family office industry, the wealth management industry through our studies, it was astounding. One of the key highlights is this industry already is delivering more value to its clients than other industries. I mean, he has looked at
It was the highest rated industry they had ever seen, right?
that he had ever seen.
Yeah.
Exactly. And so I think when you compare those numbers to some of the other firms out there, you see the difference and you see why this industry is so wonderfully unique in this space.
The the
I
the
you know,
the point
sorry,
about
go
reducing anxiety,
yes, right.
if as the advisors are moving up to the ultra high net worth space,
Yep,
the anxieties change
that's right. Yeah.
because there is very little anxiety about retirement or collecting Social Security or those types of things
Yeah.
are not the things that cause anxiety in the ultra high net worth space. They're probably much closer to some of the things that you see in the social impact, life changing, legacy. How is this going to be perceived in 100 years? What about my ongoing children and our relationships? What about all these business operations that we have? What about this? What about this? It's it's not normal anxiety of an affluent investor who's very hardworking and smart and wonderful, and they're like, one day I'd like to retire.
Yes.
That is a different level of anxiety, right?
Yeah, this ties actually beautifully into what you do at Total Family, but this is talking about social impact, life changing. How does it impact my heirloom legacy
Yeah.
and further generations? How does it provide hope for those people? How does it make me help others and help the world?
Okay,
Those,
so heirloom is their definition of heirloom is a good investment for future generations. And the example they use is Patek Philippe, which is the watch company. But and you're kind of talking about it through the philanthropic
yeah,
arm,
yeah.
right?
Yeah, but it's also, up in this area, right? So up in the very, very top, they call it self-transcendence. That can be invests in the well-being of my community or has ethical, fair, responsible business practices. Like it really helps care for the Earth's environment, helps me help others and the world, like I said, helps me feel good about my life, those kinds of things. Um, Heirloom goes to, is this a good investment for future generations? Are they helping me feel like I'm hopeful about the future? Those
Yeah.
types of things make a huge difference. And so I think, again, when you look at the other firms that have participated through Bain originally, we're talking like the Ritz-Carlton, let's say, for example, in those elements of value. The Ritz-Carlton had 11 elements of value. In our most recent study, this industry has 20. That is incredible
It
because you
really
think
is.
Ritz as the highest level of client
Yeah.
satisfaction and client service and the client experience, all those things. The highest they had ever seen, I believe, Alex, was Disney Cruise Lines, because you get
Okay.
that sense of belonging. You get that, like, there's so many things that go along with it, different from other travel experiences. So Disney Cruise Lines hit 17, and that was record breaking. And
That's
now
extremely surprising to me. I mean, Disney, I gotta say that Disney beat the Ritz Carlton, but maybe they're hitting.
that was true. Yeah,
But honestly, as parent, like they know who their audience is. Disney
they
Cruise
do.
Lines, right?
Right.
And they're hitting on these elements of value. They know their customer.
Yes, they know their customer, and that is what's key for us. And I think we have firms now that are repeating the voice of the client study because they did it 2 years ago and they want to see if their clients have felt the difference in the shifts they've made. They have made holistic shifts in how they address their clients. So, like I said, I mean, investment management is table stakes. The expectation is already there before they walk in the door. It is important to find innovative ways to enhance the client experience and stand out, and reducing that client anxiety is key. So,
I think
that,
something else that was interesting, and I know that this is not all public data, but they break out the ultra high net worth satisfaction and level of importance. And I thought there was some really interesting elements of everyone thinks this is important. Actually, ultra high net worth don't think that's important at all, or it's marginally different or better. And there's a couple interesting examples like client reporting and technology, fiduciary and trust services, and some of these other elements that are just fascinating. What a great tool to give your member firms and I guess your non-member firms, but
yeah,
for people to benchmark over time.
that's right. And that's why firms are doing it again and again now. We also find that firms sort of pre-acquisition, post-acquisition, if you're merging a number of firms together that have very different cultures. Wouldn't it be interesting to look at what is the client experience for each of those? And then 2 years later, as a merged entity, what is the client experience now? And be able to benchmark that against yourselves, yet alone against the industry. We also in here look at the net promoter score, again, because it's Bain, and they're very focused on that. If you think of net promoter score, let's say for BMW, their net promoter score is 48. So Bain says anything above a 0 is good. And
Okay.
around a 50 is excellent, right? So Tiffany is at a 50. This industry, according to our most recent study, is nearly at 70, right? It is, again,
Wild.
outstanding. We are very good at taking care of our clients, and we need to make that very clear. You build that communication with your clients, that connection with your clients, personalization, trust, belonging, all of those things that we've been talking about. And that is your differentiator in the market.
Yeah.
And to your
I'm
point, sorry, go ahead.
no, no, go ahead.
You will see on some of the research that fees, which you would, to your point, expect to be very important for the ultra high net worth client, it comes very, very low on that list, like
Yeah.
almost at the bottom.
Right.
What comes at that top is that my advisor understands me. I can trust my advisor. They're looking out for me. They're my partner, and I have this emotional connection, not just a functional connection with them.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. Like, this almost instill, I'm not really in the multifamily office industry. I'm sort of tangential to it, but I think that sometimes wealth management, family office, money, space gets a bad rap. And to me, there was a sense of pride that came from what I saw some of these, that just how the clients felt about the services they were getting, because you want to feel like not that you're a pariah and you're taking money and adding no value, but that you're adding tremendous value, and that people are really happy to do business with you and they don't know what they would do without you. And like higher scores than BMW, Tiffany, Ritz Carlton, on both scores, Disney cruises is wild. This instilled a sense of pride in the industry for me.
Yeah. Yeah. And I would say, 3,000 clients, it's a pretty good benchmark. We're going to be
Yeah.
coming out with the next benchmark, and we've had some big firms participate this year. So the next benchmark will come out in Q1 of 2026, and I'm looking forward to seeing where it takes us.
You
But it's
said
all
that other firms can participate. So if
firms can
someone,
participate at any time throughout the year. This is an ongoing rolling survey. We do a benchmark once a year, but any firm that participates gets an active dashboard as they're fielding the study. And then they get a summary and the full report just for their clients afterwards. Again, it's completely anonymous. So
yeah,
clients feel comfortable participating. They want to be asked. And if you're
right.
going to ask them, it's a very key way to understand what's important to them.
I think a firm would be crazy to not do it, because you can
I think that
easily
too.
go, you can easily go to your clients and say, there's so much changing. We're trying to figure out what changes we need to make to make sure that we're living up to your expectations of us. Can you help us? Who wouldn't,
Yeah.
what client wouldn't respond to that? Okay. Switching gears. What is a multifamily office? That is what we'll do
So,
for the rest of this show, because there is a lot of people who just say the word family office or multifamily office. And I think it's at the point where it's confusing to people.
yeah, it is
Feels
very
confusing.
confusing, and it is a term that is thrown out on pretty much every website now. Whether or not it means anything is the question. And so again, that goes back to how do you really differentiate in that space? I would say the heart of the voice of the client is the elements of value. But within that, sort of the backbone that we structure everything around in the voice of the client are the MFO standards that we created in 2006 and continue to update.
Okay.
And those also are focused on 10 core service offerings. So those 10 core service offerings are part of the voice of the client. So it all ties together in terms of how we look at the market. But what qualifies as a true multifamily office? We look at four different factors. So we look at four things. One, who do they serve? Two is what services they offer.
Hmm.
Three is how do they deliver those services? And four is what experience does that firm have in this space? So we look at all of those different factors to define what qualifies as a true multifamily office.
Okay. I would like to dive deep into standard number one and standard number two because I feel like they have the most sort of concrete. If you're sitting there trying to figure out, are we a multifamily office?
Yeah.
These are good ways to do it. So tell us about standard number one. Whom do they serve?
So who do they serve? That's their client base, right? In 2019, we did a study. We called it the competitive landscape study. We asked what your ideal client looks like. Very few of those firms describe their ideal client just in terms of AUM. They focused on the complexity of those clients, the desire for management of that complexity at a much deeper level of expertise to navigate things like multi-generational family dynamics, complex trusts and estates, advanced tax strategies. So, in general, the client base, the way we've defined it's these complex multi-generational families over 30 million in net worth. That's our definition of an ultra high net worth client.
Has that
Over
changed since 2006? That number?
No, I do not believe that number has changed since
Okay.
2006. We use that as our industry standard. What has changed, which is a really great question, is we used to say ultra high net worth clients between 30 and 300 million net worth on a bell curve.
Yeah.
Now, that top number, that's what's changed. So
Right.
now we're saying 30 million to multi-billion dollar clients. That I hear every day, right? Due to what's happened in the market, due to liquidity events, et cetera. But the 30 million has sort of been our stake in the ground all along. But it's 30 million net worth. We say, a minimum of 10 distinct client families in that space and aggregate client assets over 1 billion. But the key is these complex, large, multi-generational families with very complex needs.
Okay, so that makes a ton, and I've heard this over and over that it's the managing of the complexity.
Yeah.
So you both need a firm that can actually manage that complexity and someone who has the complexity that needs to manage. So that makes a ton of sense to me because you could have you could have $30 million in one stock, and it's not super complex if you're a first gen wealth creator and all that kind of stuff versus multi-gen trusts, all that. Something else that I don't know if this is totally true, but it feels like it is with multifamily offices, they seem to retain the wealth at transfer at a substantially higher clip than the industry average because you've seen the 80% of people plan on leaving, but then when I talk to some of the firms that are in FWA and some of the ones that we know and say, hey, how many people leave when assets transfer, usually the answer is no one.
Yeah.
And when I ask them what percent of their relationships are multi-generational, they say 100%.
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting. I think that goes back to really understanding your client and your
Yeah.
client segment and being able to provide a holistic offering to them. And every client is going to have a different view of what is holistic, right? And what
Yeah.
their needs are. But once you hit that, basically the taxable estate, and once you hit something that complex, and a family maybe has 50 different entities that they need to manage, it's pretty sticky. I will say though that with the wealth transfer, there is in the industry, as you said, many people want to leave their parents advisors, many people, or grandparents advisors, and find somebody that's more their speed, whatever that happens to be, or have similar values or outlook on life, whatever it happens to be. And the way best in class firms are addressing that, there's a number of different ways, but if they are staffing themselves with talent of the next generation who can connect with the next generation of the wealth creator, that makes a huge difference because
Yeah.
then they feel like they're understood and they
Right.
again become more sticky.
Yeah.
So a
Well,
lot
it's
yeah,
it's
yeah,
interesting. Like if you say, even just the way someone's talking, if they say my parents' firm,
mhm,
that sort
right,
of means that they don't feel like they have agency inside this, like this ecosystem that's created, versus we've heard, even though the parent uses the same firm, when we hear people talk about the firm, it's like my family office,
yes,
our family office, not my parents' family office.
yes,
The, by the way, the word holistic, that's another one that gets
yeah.
a lot of
We can have a whole nother session. Yeah.
right. We could just do a holistic podcast. The It's interesting, like the 30 million. I don't know who ultimately decides like what these numbers are, but to me, it feels like it's going higher. The ultra high net worth cutoff to me feels closer to 75 or $100 million. If I'm just going on like anecdotal what we hear, and then also when the client expectation really flips in terms of like how things get priced and the level of service that they're getting. I think if you tried to do something with $100 million client that you were doing with a $30 million client, I think you would get more pushback, or they would sort of know that you don't manage a lot of $100 million clients. So to me, I don't even know who I would appeal, like who approves any of these changes for any of this stuff. But it just feels to me like over the last 10 years, that number on both sides, to your point, has gone even higher.
Yeah, and I would agree with that. I mean, we hear more and more firms going to, "Oh, we have, our focus is on 50 million or 75."
Right.
You're 100% correct. That is happening. I think we just use it right now as the benchmark to, again, because of the complexities that come with the taxable estate at that point. I think we use it as an industry benchmark
Yeah.
for that reason. But again, if you think it's multi-generational, right? So the $100 million client, the next gen may be at 25 million
Right.
before even doing anything, right? So
Right.
30 million just sort of sits there right now. I wouldn't be surprised if the industry as a whole does continue to go up, but the firms definitely are going up as the market is just helping
Yeah.
in that regard.
And maybe making room for some more firms in this space, like as the true multifamily offices raise to that $7,500 million level,
Yep.
that gives opportunity for firms who are trying to service the $30 million client. So, all right, standard number two, what services do they offer?
Right. So the service menu, and we think this is the key to the whole thing. So we do a lot of research. We look at our research often based on these 10 core service offerings, the service menu. Most firms play in a majority of these 10, but I wouldn't say firms are very strong in all of the 10.
Okay.
It is traditional wealth management firms sort of hang their value on portfolio management, financial planning. Maybe they quarterback things like tax trusts, accounting, estate work with external experts. And you'll find a handful of the core services, but not all of them. They're much more likely to outsource than to be deeply integrated. What we consider a true MFO integrates this. It looks at the whole. So what are those 10 services? You want me to go through the 10 and list them?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think that might be helpful. But just, I want to clarify. So you're saying as long as the firm integrates it, they can have an estate planning partner, technology, whatever. As long as it's fully integrated, that counts. Okay. It doesn't have to be done they don't have to have a person in-house doing the estate work, or they do.
They do not have to.
Okay.
They have to provide the service.
Yep.
Some firms do outsource expertise to true experts in a sleeve of the service offering, but they need to offer the services in one way, shape, or form.
Do they
That is
have to offer the services to everyone?
no, you're not gonna,
Okay.
because not everybody's gonna need all these services or be interested in them.
Right. But do they have to offer it to everyone?
I think
I
that's a
agree that.
firm decision.
Okay. All right. Okay.
I think firms, they need to have a majority of these service offerings to be an MFO, but they do not need to have all the employees on their payroll.
Yep.
Maybe that's the way to think about it, right?
Sure. Okay.
So it runs everything from integrated financial planning, portfolio management to consolidated reporting and technology, estate and wealth transfer, tax planning and compliance. And then we get into things like risk management, which is getting to be more and more important.
Yeah.
Fiduciary trust services, same thing there. Family governance. Some firms are focusing on lifestyle management. Some firms are leaning into strategic philanthropy as their differentiator. There's different aspects to all of this, but those are the 10 core services that we think are essential for most complex, wealthy families.
Okay. So I want to just jump into a couple of them. And I think we'll breeze over financial planning, portfolio management, consolidated reporting,
Sure.
estate and wealth transfer, and tax. I think most firms really understand what they're doing there. So risk management a lot of times was like insurance
Yeah.
based. I would say most
Yeah.
firms are doing that. But
Yeah.
I'm hearing more and more about the cybersecurity general risk of all of this stuff being out there in the ether. Are firms trying to take this on internally? Are they finding right types of partners? And then are you seeing elevated requests for it from the client base?
Yeah, we are. I think, like you said, insurance review, insurance coordination, insurance strategy is part of risk management. Physical and cybersecurity, when it comes to the home of your client, the individual, their phones, the, again, multi-generational view of this
Yeah.
is Gen 4 doing everything on their phone and on social media. And what are the implications there? So, not only looking at cybersecurity holistically in terms of the advisory firm and the client, but the client experience of cybersecurity now that everything is online and physical security is becoming more and more important in this world that we live in today.
Right.
Identity theft, things like that. We're hearing identity theft becoming more and more prevalent. So it can even be audits of, those issues for your clients, but some play in that area.
I
Insurance
mean,
still is a very big area here, right?
right. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
The fires that have been going on, the flooding that's been going on. So it's not just life insurance, property and casualty insurance,
Right.
there's sorts of parts of risk management for the ultra high net worth client that they need to take into account now that perhaps 10 years ago they didn't.
Right. Well, they have more to lose. Going back to that elements of value, reducing anxiety,
Right.
it
Exactly.
feels to me like this is an area that there's tons of room for firms to get creative, find more partners, whether it's social media, physical, like there's just so much going on here, and so many new risks that are presenting themselves that I feel like that is one area that we've heard of firms doing really creative things that I think clients tremendously value.
We have firms doing, password audits and they're
Yeah, exactly.
scams and they're the board of the firm is testing the firm for these things. There's all sorts of interesting variations on risk management now.
Right. Of just like people, if you Google these people's names, can someone just find your address? Can someone just find, okay, so that is an interesting area in terms of firms looking to differentiate. Lifestyle management. I just saw that Chase is doing like a lifestyle offering at Chase Private Client. I always think that this is an area where firms can kind of get over their skis
Yeah.
because it's very, very hard to scale.
Yeah.
And some of these things, like even the bill pay services, have technology has helped that in a lot of ways. So maybe substantially more valuable 20 years ago than it was today. What are you seeing in lifestyle management that is either like interesting to you or maybe just words to the wise of people trying to figure out if they should do some of this?
Yeah, I would say lifestyle management seems to be the most controversial one amongst firms. They
Okay.
either to stay far away from it and have
Right.
their clients outsource these things to very trusted partners of theirs, or they
Yeah.
want to take it on. Lifestyle management is much more than bill pay. And sometimes I think firms just think of it as bill pay.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, it can be everything from concierge health, which is a very big topic we hear
That's a
about,
growing area.
property management. It can
Mm,
be personal CFO services. There's lots of different areas here. Concierge travel. Some firms are really leaning into this lifestyle side for their clients. There's
yeah.
a very large firm that has an expertise now in art collection, and that is a differentiator for them,
Right.
right? So it's an interesting area that either you want to, as you said, you can get over your skis or you can specialize, and those clients will know
Yeah.
what you're good at.
Yeah. And I wonder, I think you have a couple member organizations who are doing the concierge health. That to me is you can find a partner to help with that. That's a value add. Concierge travel, again, you go 20 years ago, substantially more valuable to me outside looking in. Then it's hard to do concierge travel better than like Amex sort of
Yeah,
thing,
yeah,
or even the private aviation. That used to be a very big thing, but there's so many more firms going into this private aviation space that if I'm a firm looking at lifestyle services, I'm probably going closer to the direction of the stuff that you're mentioning
yes,
than trying to do concierge travel better than Amex, which is going to be really, really hard to do, you know?
right. Yeah.
Okay. Family governance meetings. And what is this? This can't be important to families. I'm just
Sa-
kidding.
Says
No.
you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, well,
What is,
I
how do you
but
define this?
but this is we define it as family education, coordination of family governance, family dynamics is the way that people are talking about it today. We often refer to total family because you are experts in this area. It could even be the financial education of Gen 2, Gen 3, Gen 4. The family dynamics, you again, it goes back to some of the elements of value. You want to connect with this multi-gen family. As things get more complex, oftentimes the dynamics, the governance issues around the family wealth get more complex as well. And so
Yes.
that's what we're saying. Do you have in-house somebody who is focused on family dynamics, family governance, et cetera?
Here's a couple things that I think could be valuable for some of the firms listening. I think on the education piece, there is areas to go besides financial. And I know that a lot of firms are more comfortable doing financial education. They're wealth management firms. That makes a ton of sense to me. It feels to me like young people in our country have never needed more help. And it might be the least amount of faith that people have had in the education system of our country, and things just like evaluating college as a cost benefit. And, it just feels like it's changing on the education space. And so working with your really important clients on as opposed to being like education, it's just like, how can we invest in the young people in your family that you really care about and give them the best chance of success? It doesn't have to be financial. It could be, anything that your client is telling you is important. Like, we want kids who have a good work ethic. It's like, well, how can we help them instill some of these things. We want kids who have broad experiences. There's ways for firms to help families be more deliberate in the education of their young people. You agree or disagree?
Yeah, beautifully said. I think that is spot on. I 100% agree with you. And I think that there are firms who are actually building community
Yeah.
around this topic, getting their clients together. The 20-year-olds who are inheriting significant wealth don't have a lot of people they can talk to about it openly. So if you
Yeah.
bring some of those inheritors together so they don't feel so alone, firms are leaning into various ways to create family education, to your point, in ways that they haven't before. And again, those are differentiators. And those are the things that are going to make your clients sticky and
Yeah,
want to.
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. It's like, hey, these people invested in my kids. Sort of, what else do you need to hear in terms of a firm? And then on the family meetings, we're doing a ton more on this, but I think a great stat for firms is what percent of your clients have an annual family meeting. If you don't know that, start tracking it.
Mhm.
And then the bad version of family meetings is the family office does everything and the family has no ownership in it. And the family office is ordering the catering and planning it and doing the agenda and all this kind of stuff. And I think the really good version of it is it's owned by the family. The family office is giving them ideas, they're setting it up, they're putting some structures around it. But if you want your clients to have family meetings, even if you have hundreds of clients, it's impossible if you're doing it all. If the family's owning it and you're guiding them to have these meetings, and our mutual friend Jay Hughes says there isn't an example of a successful multi-generational family that doesn't have family meetings, so clearly it's important.
Yeah.
But how, having your firm creates a way of doing family meetings that it's not impossible for you to deliver at scale, and that you can push the ownership to the clients. That's some of the stuff that I feel like is really an opportunity for firms in the family meeting space.
Yeah. And to create that trust and transparency,
Yeah,
some of your other podcast guests have spoken about the importance of that. But that's the true beauty.
right. I told Paul Ferguson, I did a BCE webinar, and I said the goal of the first family meeting is for everyone to want to have a second one.
That's right.
you know
Yeah.
it doesn't have to be a boardroom succession, going through charts thing. You can talk for a little while and go whitewater rafting and have everyone say, oh wow, that was really fun, can we do that again next year, sort of thing.
Yeah.
All right, Rachel, so just wrapping up, is there any sort of places that you want people to learn about Family Wealth Alliance, where they can find you if they're curious about more things? Where should they go? And we'll put all the links that you're telling us below.
Yes, we will definitely be sharing some information below. You can always go to fwalliance.com, and there's lots of information there available to both member firms and non-member firms. We are happy to speak with anyone who wants to learn more about our B2B membership organization and our community and how we provide the tools that are valuable and the resources to help advise advisors in this space. So
Rachel, thank you so much for coming on, Visionary Advisor. You're the best. I will talk to you soon.
thanks, Alex. Thanks so much for having me.
That is all we have for you today, Visionary Advisors. Until next time, remember, the future of wealth starts with you.